I look so motherfucker Girlalala. Clear my set. Yums. Put your hands together 3 times and clap. Clock that T. I'm real Girlalala. What happened? Oh, fuck my daddy. Yes, girl, I've been done punch you with something on accident. You sure I won't feel it?
You might feel a little bit. It's just a little pinprick. It's nothing crazy.
Why is it shocking?
It's not shocking. It's calibrating.
Hold on, I say make sure it's open my eyes. Fool. I'm scared of the bitch. You want so fast.
That's my hand.
Oh, I'm so. Wait, what is that?
This is just the hose.
Yeah, can you move it away? Hold on. Wait, hold on. Hold on. Don't just do it yet. I can't even see you.
I'm gonna tell you where I'm going.
Hold on. Can you like feel my face first before you put it on there? Let me position myself. Like put your hand right here. Okay, I'm ready.
I'm gonna move this up.
Hold on. Okay.
This is my hand.
Okay.
I'm gonna do a little test spot right here.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh shit! Woo. Wait, hold on. You ready?
You ready? Got that chin.
You got all the lips? It hurt like right there because that hair, but make sure you get all the lips. I need to be teased.
Yep.
Oh! I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Please don't hate me. I like you, so next time just do my appointment again. I like you, but hold on. This
Case is done.
Period!
You ready for underarms?
Underarms for the hurt?
No.
Okay, come on, I'm ready then.
In through your nose, out through your mouth.
Woo!
Isn't it amazing?
Period. Bitch, when I tell y'all, let me turn this motherfucker water on. When I tell y'all that dick be some motherfucking good when you in love with a bitch, whew, that shit hit 10 times harder. Like, if you can vouch for me, make sure you repost my video. But when I tell you that dick hits so good.
A 21-year-old TikTok influencer with 235,000 followers was shot dead by her boyfriend in Florida 6 days ago, and a Tesla door camera captured her final moments, showing him dragging her back into the car by her hair before shooting her multiple times. Maurice Harrison was killed on November 14th, 2025, by Shanoyd Whyte Jr., a former college football player she'd been with for 3 years. The surveillance footage is devastating. The evidence is overwhelming. And this case just broke. Almost nobody is covering the full, sick details yet. Maurice was a rising wig influencer and hairstylist who built a massive platform showing off her styling work. Shanoyd was her boyfriend of 3 years, a 25-year-old ex-defensive lineman from Bethune-Cookman University. They argued constantly according to police reports. And on that Friday night in Lauderdale Lakes, one of those arguments turned fatal. The Tesla camera shows White stepping out of his Chevrolet Malibu with what appears to be a gun in his hand. Maurice is leaning out of the passenger door. He grabs her by the hair and forces her back into the vehicle. Then he paces around the car and calls 911.
911, what is the address to your emergency? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I don't know the address, bro. Just check. Just check, please.
Okay, are you at a house, apartment, or business?
Yes, I'm at a house. I'm at a house. Please.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
Please.
Tell me exactly what happened.
Please.
Okay, we have a call incident for service. Who's...
Hey, come on. All right, thank you.
Stay on the line with me.
Hello?
Yes,
hello?
This is 911. Stay on the phone with me, okay?
Yes, hello?
This is 911.
Hello?
This is 911.
Get here. Hurry up and get here. Who's calling me? Hurry up and get here.
Stay on the line with me. I need you to stay on the line with me, okay?
Please.
Tell me exactly.
Please.
On the way. I need you to stay on the line with me, okay? Stay on
All
the
right.
line. Do not disconnect. Are you able to give me a good address? Stay on the line with me, okay?
All right.
They're coming as quickly as they can, okay? They're coming. They're on the way. Me and you talking is not delaying them. Stay on the phone with me. Stay on the line with me.
By the time deputies arrived, Maurice Harrison was dying from multiple gunshot wounds. This is that case. Maurice Harrison was 21 years old and known online as Girlalala. She was a transgender influencer and hairstylist based in Pompano Beach, Florida, who built a substantial following across social media platforms. On TikTok alone, she had more than 235,000 followers. Her Instagram had over 42,000 followers, where she described herself as a wig influencer. Maurice's content focused on her hairstyling work, particularly wigs.
Bitch, when I tell y'all, let me turn this motherfucker water out. When I tell y'all that did be some motherfucking good when you in love with a bitch, whew, that shit 10.
She'd post transformation videos, styling tutorials, and showcases of her wig installations. Her followers knew her for her skill with hair and her vibrant personality on camera. She was building a business and a brand around her talent. But Maurice's life hadn't been easy. According to public reports and the GoFundMe campaign established after her death, she'd faced significant challenges. She was a young black transgender woman navigating an industry while building her platform and trying to establish financial stability through her hairstyling work. Tragically, Maurice's family had already been devastated by gun violence before November 14th. Her brother was shot and killed in August 2024, just 3 months before Maurice's own death. The family was still grieving that loss when they received the news about Maurice.
Hey y'all, thank you. But today I did a thing. I'm starting my laser hair removal, like start from the face, the armpits. Bitch, how about she was trying to put that motherfucking light on my face? I say, no ma'am, no hair, no turkey. Bitch, you better go get some numbing cream. I don't play like that. So right now, ooh, shit. But I feel like a motherfucking get fillers. I don't even know what the fuck fillers is. I even felt that before. The face so numb. I'm starting to feel that shit. Damn, they give a bitch a heat stroke. It's so hot and getting numb. She need to go take it off now. Feel that bitch on my lip. But yes, y'all. Starting my hair removal. Cause I'm a girl. Like, girls don't get into that. But yeah. Look at the wardrobe, though. Thank ya. Booty poke out like a book bag. Booty poke out like a book bag. Woo woo, pull over ass too fat. Cup of sugar. Let me stop talking nasty. No ma'am, no here, no turkey. Go ahead and sit down. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead and sit down, but yeah.
On November 14th, 2025, Maurice was in Lauderdale Lakes with her boyfriend Shanoyd Whyte Jr. It was a Friday evening, shortly before 7 p.m. They were in his Chevrolet Malibu in the driveway of a home on Northwest 37th Street. What happened next would end Maurice's life and leave her family shattered for the second time in less than 4 months. Shanoyd Whyte Jr. was 25 years old at the time of the shooting. He was a former defensive lineman who'd played college football at Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida. After his time playing football, details about his current employment or life situation at the time of Maurice's death remain limited in public records. What is documented is his relationship with Maurice Harrison. According to Whyte's own statements to police, he and Maurice had been in a relationship for the past 3 years. He told deputies that they argue often. That admission would become critical. This wasn't a one-time incident between strangers. This was a 3-year relationship marked by frequent conflicts. And here's where it gets worse. Shanoyd Whyte Jr. had been arrested before for domestic violence. In November 2022, exactly 3 years before Maurice's murder, Whyte was arrested for battery. According to court records, he physically and maliciously battered a victim multiple times during that incident. The victim in that 2022 case was not Maurice Harrison, but someone else. That victim ultimately declined to proceed with the case, and the charges were apparently resolved. So Whyte had a documented history of domestic violence 3 years before he killed Maurice.
Attitudes is for niggas with money. Put a smile on your face, you po bitch. How you wake up, man?
He had a pattern of physically harming intimate partners. And according to his own admission to police, he and Maurice argued constantly throughout their 3-year relationship. There's no public record of Maurice ever filing charges against Whyte or seeking a restraining order, but that doesn't mean the relationship was healthy. According to Whyte's statements to detectives after the shooting, their arguments were frequent enough that he characterized it as something they did often. For 3 years, Maurice Harrison was in a relationship with someone who had a history of battering intimate partners and who would later tell police that their relationship was defined by constant arguments. On November 14th, 2025, one of those arguments would end with Maurice dying from multiple gunshot wounds in the passenger seat of Whyte's car. Maurice Harrison and Shanoyd Whyte Jr. had been together for 3 years by November 2025. According to Whyte's own statement to police, their relationship was volatile. They argue often was how he described it to deputies, but they stayed together despite the constant conflicts. What was happening in the hours and days before November 14th remains largely undocumented in public records. There's no indication that Maurice had reported recent incidents to police or that anyone had called in domestic disturbances at the address. But the absence of police reports doesn't mean there was peace. It often just means that violence was happening behind closed doors. What we do know is what happened on November 14th, 2025, based on police reports, witness statements, and critically, surveillance footage from a Tesla door camera that captured Maurice's final moments. It was a Friday evening in Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. Maurice and Whyte were in his Chevrolet Malibu, parked in the driveway of a home in the 3300 block of Northwest 37th Street. According to authorities and Whyte's later statements, the couple was having another argument. This one started as verbal, but according to police, it turned physical. Whyte told deputies that Maurice pulled his hair during the argument. That's his version. That she initiated physical contact by grabbing his hair. But remember, this is coming from the man who shot her, so take it for what it's worth. There's no independent verification of who touched who first or how the physical altercation actually started. What happened next is documented by that Tesla door camera, and the footage is devastating. According to police descriptions of the surveillance video, it shows Whyte stepping out of the driver's side of the Chevrolet Malibu. In his hand appears to be a gun. Maurice is visible leaning out of the passenger side door. Then Whyte does something that makes your stomach drop. He grabs Maurice by the hair and physically places her back into the car. Think about that for a second. Maurice was trying to get out of that vehicle. Whether she was trying to escape the argument, try to leave the situation, or reacting to seeing the gun, we don't know. But she was leaning out of that passenger door, and Whyte grabbed her by the hair and forced her back inside the car. After placing Maurice back in the vehicle, the surveillance footage shows Whyte pacing near the car. Then he calls 911. Inside that Chevrolet Malibu, Maurice Harrison was dying from multiple gunshot wounds. The timeline is critical here. Whyte told police they were arguing. The call came in shortly before 7 p.m. on November 14th. When Whyte called 911, he directed deputies to his Chevrolet Malibu parked in the driveway. That's where they found Maurice Harrison in the front passenger seat, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Deputies arrived at the scene. Maurice was unresponsive. The wounds were catastrophic. She'd been shot multiple times at close range while trapped in the passenger seat of that car. There was no saving her. Maurice Girlalala. Harrison died from multiple gunshot wounds fired while she sat in the passenger seat of Shanoyd Whyte Jr.'s Chevrolet Malibu on the evening of November 14th, 2025. The shooting happened shortly before 7 p.m. in the driveway of a home on Northwest 37th Street in Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. Then he grabs Maurice by the hair, the same Maurice who was dying from the gunshot wounds he just inflicted, and physically forces her back into the vehicle. He places her back in that passenger seat, where he just shot her. Let that sink in. Maurice was trying to escape. She'd been shot multiple times, and was using whatever strength she had left to lean out of that car door. And Whyte grabbed her by the hair and put her back inside. After placing Maurice back in the car, the surveillance footage shows Whyte pacing around near the vehicle. He's moving back and forth, still holding what appears to be the firearm. Then he calls 911. The 911 call came in at approximately 7 p.m. when deputies from the Broward Sheriff's Office arrived at the 3300 block of Northwest 37th Street. Whyte directed them to his Chevrolet Malibu in the driveway. That's where they found Maurice Harrison. She was in the front passenger seat. She'd suffered multiple gunshot wounds. She was unresponsive. The deputies tried to render aid, but the wounds were too severe. Maurice Harrison was pronounced dead. She was 21 years old. She had 235,000 followers who loved her wig transformations and hairstyling content. She had dreams and a business she was building. She had a family that had already lost her brother to gun violence just 3 months earlier. And she died in the passenger seat of her boyfriend's car after he shot her multiple times during an argument, then physically prevented her from escaping by grabbing her by the hair. The entire incident was captured on surveillance footage. Whyte's actions after the shooting, exiting the car with a gun, forcing Maurice back inside, pacing around before calling 911, were all documented by that Tesla camera. The scene was secured. The weapon, the firearm Whyte had used to shoot Maurice, was recovered. The physical evidence was straightforward. One shooter, one gun, one victim, all inside a vehicle parked in the driveway, and the surveillance footage showing what happened immediately after shooting. Maurice Harrison died in that driveway on November 14th, 2025. Her death was ruled a homicide, and Shanoyd Whyte Jr. was taken into custody. Investigators recovered the firearm used in the shooting. The gun was found at the scene, and ballistics evidence confirmed it was the weapon that fired the shots that killed Maurice. There was no question about what weapon was used. Whyte had the gun, and it was recovered by police. The physical evidence inside the Chevrolet Malibu told a clear story. Shell casings, blood evidence, and the trajectory of the gunshot wounds all indicated that Maurice had been shot multiple times while seated in the passenger seat of the vehicle. There was no evidence of any struggle for weapon or any indication that Maurice had been armed. This wasn't a shootout or a mutual combat situation. This was one person with a gun shooting an unarmed person trapped in the passenger seat of a car. But the most damning evidence wasn't just the physical forensics. It was the surveillance footage from a Tesla door camera that had captured Maurice's final moments. The Tesla camera belonged to a vehicle near where Whyte's Chevrolet Malibu was parked in the driveway. Tesla vehicles have door cameras that activate when they detect motion or activity near the car. In this case, that camera captured what happened after the shooting. The footage shows Whyte stepping out of the driver's side of his Chevrolet Malibu. In his hand appears to be a firearm, the same gun he just used to shoot Maurice multiple times. The camera captures Maurice leaning out of the passenger side door. She'd been shot, but she was still conscious and trying to get out of that vehicle. Then Whyte walks around to the passenger side. The footage shows him grabbing Maurice by the hair and physically placing her back into the car. He forces her, a woman dying from multiple gunshot wounds, back into the passenger seat of the vehicle where he just shot her. This footage is devastating for any potential defense Whyte might try to mount. It shows consciousness of guilt. It shows him preventing Maurice from escaping after he'd shot her. It contradicts any claim of self-defense. You don't force a victim back into a car if you legitimately feared for your life. The Tesla camera captured everything, and what it captured was Shanoyd Whyte Jr. controlling Maurice Harrison even in her final moments of life. During questioning by detectives, Whyte made several statements that would further cement the case against him. He confirmed that he and Maurice had been in a relationship for 3 years. But here's where Whyte's cooperation with investigators came to an abrupt halt. After providing those basic details, Whyte declined to provide further information about what happened inside that car. According to police reports, he stated he did not want to incriminate himself. He invoked his right to remain silent on the specifics of the shooting. That decision to stop talking is telling. Whyte was willing to confirm the relationship, willing to admit they argued constantly, willing to claim Maurice had grabbed his hair, but when it came to explaining why he shot her multiple times in the passenger seat of his car, suddenly he didn't want to incriminate himself. Detectives didn't need his full confession anyway. The physical evidence was overwhelming. The surveillance footage was damning. Investigators also uncovered Whyte's history of domestic violence. The November 2022 arrest for battery, where he'd been accused of physically and maliciously battering a victim multiple times, was documented in court records. That prior incident established a pattern. Shanoyd Whyte Jr. had a history of violence toward intimate partners. The case that prosecutors would build was straightforward. A woman with 235,000 TikTok followers, a rising wig influencer and hairstylist, was shot to death by her boyfriend of 3 years during an argument inside his car. The boyfriend had a prior domestic violence arrest. The couple argued frequently according to his own admission, and surveillance footage captured him preventing the victim from escaping after he'd shot her. Within days of Maurice's death, the Broward Sheriff's Office and the State Attorney's Office announced that Shanoyd Whyte Jr. would be charged with first-degree murder with a firearm. The investigation continued. Detectives interviewed witnesses who lived near the scene. They analyzed the Tesla camera footage frame by frame. They processed every piece of forensic evidence from inside that Chevrolet Malibu. Shanoyd Whyte Jr. was arrested and charged with first-degree murder with a firearm in the death of Maurice Girlalala Harrison. First-degree murder is the most serious homicide charge in Florida, and the addition of the firearm specification makes it even more severe. In Florida, first-degree murder carries a maximum sentence of life in prison, without the possibility of parole. Because Whyte is charged with first-degree murder with a firearm, he faces a mandatory minimum sentence if convicted. The use of a firearm during the commission of felony in Florida triggers enhanced penalties under the state's 10-20 life law. Whyte faced a judge over the weekend following his arrest on November 14th. During his initial court appearance, the judge denied bond. Whyte would remain in custody at the Broward Sheriff's Office's main jail without the possibility of posting bail while awaiting trial. The decision to deny bond in a first-degree murder case is standard, but prosecutors likely also pointed to several factors that made Whyte a flight risk and a danger to the community. His prior arrest for domestic violence in November 2022, though the victim in that case declined to prosecute, established a history of violence toward intimate partners. The surveillance footage showing him preventing Maurice from escaping the vehicle after shooting her demonstrated a consciousness of guilt and a willingness to use physical force to control victims. And the severity of the crime itself. Shooting an unarmed woman multiple times in his car during an argument indicated he posed a danger if released. Whyte appeared in court via video from the Broward County Jail. He did not enter a plea at the initial appearance, which is typical in Florida capital murder cases. The judge advised him of the charges, informed him of his rights, and set the case for further proceedings. The state attorney's office for Broward County will be prosecuting the case. Prosecutors have substantial evidence to work with. Pulling someone's hair during an argument does not justify shooting them multiple times. His decision to invoke his right to remain silent after providing those basic details suggests he knew further explanation would only incriminate him more. The prosecution will likely argue that this was a murder committed during a domestic violence incident. They'll point to Whyte's 2022 arrest for battery as evidence of a pattern of abusing intimate partners. They'll use the surveillance footage to show that Whyte was in control of the situation after the shooting. He exited the vehicle, he had the gun, he physically prevented Maurice from escaping. That's not the behavior of someone who acted in self-defense or in the heat of passion. That's the behavior of someone who shot his girlfriend during an argument and then tried to control the aftermath. Whyte's defense attorney will face an uphill battle. The surveillance footage alone makes any self-defense claim nearly impossible. How do you argue self-defense when video shows you preventing the alleged threat from escaping? How do you claim you feared for your life when you're the one who exited the vehicle with the gun, walked around the passenger side, and physically forced your dying girlfriend back into the car? The defense might try to argue heat of passion or some form of manslaughter rather than first-degree murder. But in Florida, first-degree murder can be charged when a homicide is committed during the perpetration of certain felonies, including aggravated battery. If prosecutors argue that Whyte committed aggravated battery against Maurice during the argument, separate from the shooting, and that Maurice died during the commission of that felony, that supports the first-degree murder charge even without proving premeditation. Another challenge to the defense is the argument justification that Whyte offered to police. Even if the jury believes that Maurice and Whyte were in a heated argument, and even if they believe Maurice pulled his hair as Whyte claimed, Florida law does not permit deadly force in response to non-deadly force. You cannot legally shoot someone because they pulled your hair. The level of force used must be proportional to the threat faced. Multiple gunshots in response to a hair pull is grossly disproportionate and legally unjustifiable. The case is in its early stages. Preliminary hearings will be scheduled where the prosecution will present evidence to establish probable cause for the charges. Discovery will proceed, with the defense receiving copies of the surveillance footage, forensic reports, witness statements, and all other evidence the state plans to use at trial. Given the strength of the evidence, particularly that Tesla camera footage and the severity of the first-degree murder charge, there may be plea negotiations at some point. The state might offer to reduce the charge to second-degree murder or manslaughter in exchange for a guilty plea, which would spare Maurice's family the trauma of a trial. But whether Whyte would accept such an offer remains to be seen. As of now, Shanoyd Whyte Jr. remains in custody at the Broward Sheriff's Office's main jail, held without bond, awaiting trial for first-degree murder of Maurice Girlalala Harrison. If convicted, he faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. Maurice Girlalala Harrison was 21 years old when she died on November 14, 2025. She was a TikTok influencer with 235,000 followers who love her wig styling content. She was a hairstylist building a business and a brand. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She had dreams and plans for the future. She had followers who looked forward to her posts and clients who trusted her with their hair. Instead, she died from multiple gunshot wounds in the passenger seat of her boyfriend's car, shot during an argument by the man she'd been with for 3 years. She died trying to escape, leaning out of that passenger door before Whyte grabbed her by the hair and forced her back inside. Her final moments were captured on a Tesla camera, a permanent record of her boyfriend preventing her from getting help or getting away. Maurice's family is devastated. They'd already lost Maurice's brother to gun violence in August 2024, just 3 months before losing Maurice. In less than 4 months, this family buried 2 children, both killed by gunfire. The GoFundMe campaign established for Maurice's funeral expenses raised over $19,000 from people who wanted to help a family that had suffered unimaginable loss. Think about what Maurice's family has endured. In August, they get the call that their son and brother has been shot and killed. They plan a funeral. They grieve. They try to move forward. Then in November, just 3 months later, they get another call. Maurice has been shot. Maurice is dead. Another funeral. Another burial. Another child gone to gun violence. For Maurice's mother and father, the loss is incomprehensible. For Maurice's sister Courtney, who'd already lost her brother, losing Maurice means burying a second sibling before either of them reached 25. For Maurice's extended family and friends, the grief is compounded by the circumstances. Maurice didn't die in a random crime or an accident. She died at the hands of someone she trusted, someone she'd been in a relationship with for 3 years. Maurice's online community also lost someone they felt connected to. Her 235,000 TikTok followers had watched her styling videos, followed her content, and felt like they knew her. When those followers learned she'd been murdered by her boyfriend, many expressed feeling like they'd lost a friend. Social media tributes poured in from people who'd never met Maurice in person, but who felt the impact of her presence online. The broader LGBTQ+ community mourns Maurice as another Black, transgender woman lost to violence. The statistics are grim. Transgender women, particularly Black trans women, experience violent victimization at rates far exceeding the general population. Many of those violent incidents occur in the context of intimate partner relationships. Maurice's death adds to a devastating tally of trans women killed by people who were supposed to love them. Shanoyd Whyte Jr. sits in the Broward County Jail, held without bond, awaiting trial for first-degree murder with firearm. He faces life in prison if convicted. His son, Whyte as a child according to defense arguments at his bond hearing, is growing up knowing his father killed someone. Whyte's family is also dealing with consequences, though nothing compared to what Maurice's family is enduring. The Tesla surveillance footage exists as a permanent record of what Whyte did after shooting Maurice. That footage shows him exiting his car with what appears to be the gun he'd just used. It shows Maurice trying to escape, leaning out of the passenger door in what may have been her last conscious effort to get help or get away. And it shows Whyte grabbing her by the hair and forcing her back into the vehicle where she would die. That footage will likely be shown in court. Maurice's family may have to watch it. Jurors will have to watch it. And it will likely seal Whyte's fate, because you cannot claim self-defense or accident when video shows you preventing your victim from escaping after you shot them. The case raises questions about domestic violence, about the warning signs that might have been missed, and about the particular vulnerabilities that transgender women face in relationships. Whyte had been arrested for domestic violence in 2022, 3 years before he killed Maurice. That victim declined to prosecute, and Whyte faced no significant consequences for that incident. If that case had been prosecuted, if Whyte had faced accountability for his violence toward an intimate partner in 2022, would Maurice still be alive? We can't know the answer to that question. But we do know that Whyte had a documented history of domestic battery that he and Maurice argued frequently according to his own admission, and that on November 14, 2025, during one of those frequent arguments, Whyte shot Maurice multiple times and prevented her from escaping when she tried to get out of his car. Maurice Harrison's Instagram bio described her as a wig influencer. That's how her followers knew her, as someone who could transform people's looks with her styling skills, who posted energetic content, who was building something. Now that Instagram page is a memorial, filled with comments from people saying rest in peace and gone too soon and justice for Girlalala. The case is ongoing. Whyte has not yet entered a plea. Trial proceedings have not been scheduled. The justice system will determine Whyte's legal fate, but no verdict can bring Maurice back. No prison sentence can undo what happened in that Chevrolet Malibu on November 14th. No punishment for Whyte can give Maurice's family their daughter and sister back. Maurice, Girlalala, Harrison was 21 years old. She had 235,000 people following her journey online. She had a family that loved her. She had a future ahead of her. And she died because her boyfriend of 3 years shot her multiple times during an argument, then physically prevented her from escaping when she tried to get out of his car. That's what this case is. That's what the Tesla camera captured. That's what the evidence shows. And that's what Maurice's family and community are left to grieve. A young life ended violently by someone who was supposed to love her, all captured on surveillance footage that will serve as evidence in the murder trial of Shanoyd Whyte Jr. Justice for Maurice means accountability for Whyte. It means a jury seeing that Tesla footage and recognizing what it shows, a man who shot his girlfriend, then physically controlled her even as she was dying. It means Maurice's family getting answers about why their daughter was taken from them. And it means Maurice being remembered not just as a murder victim, but as a vibrant, talented young woman she was before November 14th, 2025. Maurice Harrison's death sent shockwaves through the online community, where she built her following as Girlalala. With more than 235,000 TikTok followers and over 42,000 Instagram followers, Maurice had touched thousands of people with her hairstyling content and her vibrant personality on camera.